Millennials are the most progressive and smartest generation out here. It's because we were exposed to a lot of stuff. We're exposed to everything in the 90s. Growing up, we had TV shows that talk about sex, drugs, everything in between. Cutting your, arms, relationship, bullying, every topic that you could think of. The TV shows that we grew up with, they was talking about it, right? So we was exposed with everything. Reality shows, that's when it started coming out. MTV, TRL, everything, right? So the reason why we are so progressive and so one of the smartest generation is because we were exposed to everything. But the problem was that even though we was exposed to everything, we was not educated about the topics because our parents didn't know how to talk about any of these topics. So we end up learning everything in our own way. Some of us dealt with it in a good way and learned it and moved on with their lives. The millennials had trouble with it and they end up having trouble with it. They did some crazy stuff, everything in between, right? But I do feel like as millennials are becoming parents or already parents, I do feel like we are not exposing our kids to all the stuff that we have. But I really think that we should expose the kids with everything. We just had to educate them with everything. But as millennials, we was exposed to everything without no education, right? And millennials becoming parents, I feel like we are either censoring them, not banning stuff. You can't watch this, you too young, or we let them see everything, right? I feel like we should expose kids, teenagers, at least, to everything with an education. We need to teach them, expose them about sex, not porn, okay? Just, talk about sex, talk about drugs, talk about everything. It's because they need education. They need to know. We learned it in the hard way. Millennials learned it in the hard way. We learned it in our own way. We learned it by exposure, by doing the stuff, right? We should also expose our kids to all this, but with education, right? Something that we didn't have. I really think that if millennials educate these topics to the kids, let them be exposed to this, I think we'll be they will become way better than us. But since a lot of millennials want to censor everything now, want to ban everything, we can't talk about that, you can't watch that, that's not good for you. It's gonna if we keep doing like that, we're gonna become another version of boomers. And we don't like boomers. Nobody likes boomers because they like one of the, But anyway, I really think that we need to start exposing our teenagers to everything that we did, but with education. I talk to my kid. My kid is 14 years old, right? I tell him straight up, I was not this perfect person. I was quiet. I was a quiet kid, but I drank. I straight up tell him, look, when I was in high school, I did drink. I was drinking. I did this. I did that. And I straight up tell him, I talked to him. I'm showing him that I was once a teenager. I was once doing stupid stuff. I'm showing him all this stuff because I want him to know that just because he's a teenager and I'm an adult, that he cannot talk to me. But he could talk to me because I've been there. Maybe not the same because he's a boy, but you get the point. So I talk to my kid about the stupid stuff that I did. I tell him straight up, yes, I cheated, but I cheated in class, and you shouldn't cheat because it doesn't help you learn. I learned this in the hard way. I don't want him to learn in the hard way either. I want him to know that he could count on me to be honest with him when I was a teenager and tell him my experiences, what I did, and why he shouldn't do it. So this is how I'm talking to him about it. But a lot of parents nowadays don't. Well, we are being just like our parents was. Our parents didn't talk to us about anything, right? So you telling your kids, your teenage kids, well, they don't need to know what I did as a teenager because it's none of their business. Okay, but if you talk to them and tell them what you did as a teenager and why they shouldn't do it and what you learned from that, I think it will help them understand why it shouldn't be doing this. This is why I really think that we should have more TV shows with topics about bullying, about drugs, about all that stuff. Like back in the days, Boy Meets World have episodes about alcohol, drug cults, Saved by the Bell, Degrassi. All these shows have topics about life, and we watched it and we learned from it. And as parents, we should take those lessons and expose to our teenage kids about it and talk to them why these stuff are bad. But no, we're not doing that. We also don't have TV shows that talk about any topics at all anymore. So it's insane. I really feel like we're starting to become the censored country, which censoring is horrible because people need to know more. To become a better person, we need to be exposed to stuff. We need to learn from stuff. So how can we as a country, as people, as humans, as a community learn from, how can our next generation learn from us if we keep censoring everything? They cannot watch this. That's bad. They can't listen to that. Come on, man. Millennials were the most exposed generation ever. And guess what? We learned from it. That's the reason why we're the most progressive generation ever. And if we keep censoring the next generation, guess what? They're not going to be the next progressive. They're going to become another boomer light. You know what I mean? And I love that we are talking more about mental health, and we should be talking about more about mental health because it helps us learn more. But also, we also have to talk about other topics. And I'm very of a person who I think if you speak everything, if you talk about it, if things are out there in the open, we end up learning. Us just shutting everything down is not good for anybody. I really do believe that we need to talk more. We need to share what we did as teenagers. I cannot do that to everybody, but I have a teenager and I tell him the stupid stuff I did, which it wasn't a lot because I was quiet and I was a shy person, but I still did a few things. I drank in high school, I cheated, this normal stuff, So I try to talk to him and put myself as a teenager and tell him why I think, look, this is what I did and this is why you shouldn't do it. And I feel like I do feel like that's a perfect example of teaching them that, being open, teaching them being open, that you could trust, that they could trust you with stuff if you talk to them and tell them like what you did. I do agree everything needs to be like age appropriate. You cannot just say some crazy shit. You cannot say some X-ray stuff, right? You cannot say, just keep it age appropriate. If the kid is 14, talk to him as a 14-year-old kid will do. Talk to him as your version at that 14 when you was 14 back in the day. Talk to them like that. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I feel like it should be. I really, really do believe we need to expose kids to stuff. Because we censor everything, we ban everything. You can't do that, you can't do this, you can't see that. We're becoming someone who just can't talk about anything. And I'm sorry, that's not how people grow. that's not, I don't know what else to say. So you know what? Have a good day, everybody.